Let's bring in Dan Brouillette, former Energy Secretary under President Trump. Great to have you here. Mr. Secretary, what's your reaction? How important is it to critical mineral production?
Well, thanks for having me, Ashley. It's absolutely critical to use that word yet again. The president is absolutely correct to do what he's doing with regard to the Defense Production Act. These minerals are used not only in the production of batteries, other types of technologies that are used to support our electricity grid. They're also used in our nuclear warhead program. And that's why I think the president has recognized not only an economic need, but a national security need. And that's why he's moving so aggressively.
Next one for you. President Trump pushing his energy dominance agenda in a meeting with oil executives at the White House. Dan, how does Trump get these companies to increase domestic production? Is that possible?
Well, you can make it easier to do business here in the United States. And I think that's why the president is focused on things like permitting, for instance. The permitting process here in the United States has become not only difficult, it's become too risky for many of these companies. Now we're seeing in America where sometimes it takes a Supreme Court decision to allow you to move forward with the project. Or in the case of certain pipelines, it took an act of Congress to allow the project to move forward. Those are high-risk propositions for people who are spending billions of dollars on energy infrastructure. So I think the president is absolutely correct to focus on this, to focus on things like permitting, to focus on things like reducing the regulatory burden, and yes, to reduce the amount of litigation that we see around this entire sector.
Got to bring up tariffs because I hear concerns about what tariffs could do to our energy prices. What do you say?
Well, look, tariffs are a problematic area for anyone, but the president is attempting to use this tool to find a better deal for not only the companies that are involved, but all consumers here in the United States. So while I think we tend to focus on the short term and the price impact that a tariff may have, it's important for us to look at the long term, look at the long-term effect of making it easier to do business here in the United States. And I think if the president's successful, and I think he will be, then all consumers will benefit.
Last one for you. The Trump administration announcing plans to expand drilling in the Arctic. It includes opening up the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, ANWR. Why is this expansion necessary, in your opinion?
Well, again, it's to allow the increased production of energy here in the United States within our domestic borders. That's important for a number of different reasons. We just talked about national security. We just talked about economic security. It's also important to remember, Ashley, that the way this industry conducts its business is perhaps the most efficient, the most environmentally sensitive in the world. It is certainly cleaner than anything we've ever seen in places like Russia. So I think as we look at the Arctic, as we look at what's happening in places like Alaska, even in the lower 48, what we're seeing is a very innovative, a very dynamic industry, and they are ready to increase production, but we must address these issues around regulation and permitting.
Very quickly, we were energy independent during Mr. Trump's first term. Are we that far away from being that again?
I think we can be. We're very close, and again, with these types of actions, with making the regulatory environment here in the United States less risky for these CEOs, less risky for these companies overall, we will be energy independent.
Drill, baby, drill. Dan Brouillette, great to see you, Dan. Thank you for joining us.
Good to see you.